So let's have a look at installing the Counter-Strike Global Offensive SDK. So you'll want to make sure that you've got CSGO installed. And if I just go to properties here, let's have a look at local files, browse local files. So it's installed on my E drive, my apps drive. Yours is probably installed on C, but keep that in mind, because if you have multiple drives, you want to make sure you install the SDK on the same drive. Now, to get to the SDK, you want to go to Tools and look for Counter-Strike Global Offensive SDK. Right click and install it. And you can see here, if I go to local files, browse, it says it's on drive E. So these need to be on the same drive. Most of you will not need to worry about this at all, but I had an issue once before where I installed the SDK on my solid state drive, and I installed the game on a different hard drive and it just wouldn't run. So with this in mind, you can install it and then we can play games. So the SDK is going to load, and probably sits in the background here. Here it is. Now this looks like very old school Steam. If any of you remember Steam from I guess the mid 2000s, this is what it looked like here. But HEMA World Editor is what we want. Double click that and it's going to load up the HEMA World Editor. This is the level editor for CSGO and for pretty much all Source Engine games. So we've loaded this up here, and it's pretty empty at the moment. Nothing's enabled. In fact, none of the buttons show up down here. The tool's not very user-friendly. It's really not designed for end users. It's designed for people that are working within the game engine itself. So we're just going to go File and then New. And then we get all our options. So maximize it if you haven't, and if you maximize it, make sure you go to View and Auto Size for Views, or Control A. You'll see why if I minimize it like this and push Control A, it does that. And if I maximize it, I don't want this little tiny one up here. I want to hit that and go Control A. Now, our views are as this. This is going to be our 3D view over here. This is going to be our top view, our side view, and our right view, or left view. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's one of them. We're going to set this texture up over here to be, click on Browse and type in the filter Dev, and I think it's called Dev Orange, but it's actually this one here, Dev Measure Generic. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Just double click it. Weird, didn't show up. Okay, we'll just make it the grey one here. Okay, so we've got that in there, and then I'm going to click on this selection tool here. So what I need to keep in mind is everything I make in here is what's called a brush, and it can get really complicated really quickly. If you're familiar with SketchUp, SketchUp is, I guess, very similar to modeling in HEMA Editor, where you make shapes and push and pull the shapes up and down. You can modify those shapes in simple ways, but if you want to get some real detailed stuff in there, you're going to have to import an object, and we'll deal with that later on. So get your block tool, that's this one on the left here, and we're just going to make a floor about that, 1024 by 1024. This is a pretty big block, and you'll see on the side here that it is 64 high and then 64 high here. We're actually going to bring this up so it's 512 high and hit enter. Now over here in the camera view, if I move my mouse over there and push Z, I can then move around kind of like WASD, and it's mouse look and so on. So what I'm going to do with this is go to Tools and make this hollow. I'm going to use a negative number to hollow it outwards, and since I'm never going to see the outside, I'm just going to make it -16. I'll just make it pretty thin outwards, and I'll go and zoom in here so I can see the inside of my cube. So going back to here, I'm going to put in another block. So I click on the block tool. I'm going to put a block in the center, and I'll make that high and hit enter, and you'll see that puts a block in there. And you'll see if I zoom in, if I want more detail, I can hit the plus button up here on the grid. The minus button on the grid. And then when I go to create another block, I'm going to create a block on that. But in the side view, I'm going to lift it up. Okay, so you can see in here that's on top of that. Hit enter and it gives me that. So I've got that there. Now we're just going to create a really simple map and test it out. So I'm going to put a guy here. The default is always the terrorist player. I'm going to just move over the other side here, get an entity. This is the entity tool here, and click here. But I want to change this to be a counter-terrorist, and click apply. Now this is going to be an arms race map. So if that's too far away, it'll just go purple. You'll see if I move over here, it goes red, etc. Okay. I want this to be an arms race map. There's one more thing I need to add though before I do anything else. I'm going to add a light source. Now, if I try to add it here, I might get it in the wrong place. But what I'm going to do is add it in here and then move it up. So I'm going to move it up there. You see it's going to add it there. Hit enter. It adds a terrorist, so I don't want that. I'm going to double click it and just change it to light, L-I-G-H-T, and click enter. Now I can change all these settings. We'll cover those in time, although most of them are pretty self-explanatory. And I'm just going to put a light source there. So I've got 2 players. The last thing I need to do is actually just build this map. So to do that, I'm going to save it first. And I'm going to call this AR_test and click save. It's actually going to save it into, you'll notice here, it saves it into the SDK content under Counter-Strike Global Offensive, under maps. And this could actually be loaded directly into CSGO. So if I click File, Run Map, it gets some options down here. I think I need to add in an extra thing for what am I talking about? I think I have to add something here, plus game mode 1 on the end there to get it to run in, so what am I trying to think of? Arms race, sorry. All right, so I click go. Oh, what's happened here? I've probably thrown something out there, so I'll just get rid of that bit on the end, run map. And I'll get rid of that. I might try it at the start. Plus game mode 1. Or it might be minus game mode 1. Let's try it. Nope. I'll just get rid of that whole line there. Worked before. There we go. Now, CSGO should automatically run. It was running before for me. There we go. Wants to load full screen. So I'm not actually sure if my game has gone, if my recording has gone blank screen or not, but I'll bring it back to normal screen in a second. If it's just gone blank, I'll edit this bit out. Alright, so this seems to be working. I'm not sure if this is even What you might not be able to see, and I'll have to check, is the actual level here. So the light source, it's baked the shadows into it. There's no dynamic lighting in here at the moment. So it's dark, bad at it. But it is working. So I've got my blocks in the middle here, and it is, well, it will go to arms race in a second. It's got a very long warm-up time.
No more talking, now we fight! Terrorists win.
And to get it to work, I just had to type in the console map AR_test game mode 1. And maybe that's the wrong one because it said casual elimination mission here. And then
let's move!
Load. So there's a very simple level in the Hammer editor. And lighting as well.